Story 5. The Chill Before the Books. After 4 straight days of working like a crazy through the Eid al-Fitr holiday, the morning of April 4th arrived like a much-needed exhale. No alarms, no uniforms, no rush hour traffic, just quiet. That kind of quiet that feels like a blanket after a storm. I stayed in a bed little longer than usual, not because I was lazy, but because my body insisted on it. My legs ached like I'd run a marathon every day. My arms were sore, and my mind was still half in restaurant mode, occasionally drifting to thoughts like, did I give table 5 sambal they asked for? I shook my head and chuckled to myself. You're not working today, man. Chill. It was around noon when Daniel texted me. Bro, Tito wants us to come over, just chill time. You in? I didn't even hesitate. I answered Daniel. 100% I'll bring drinks. By 2 p.m., I was on my way to Tito's house on my motorcycle. The wind finally hitting my face without the pressure of a deadline. I wore the most relaxed clothes, a loose t-shirt and short, the same pair I hadn't dared to wear while working. I felt human again. Tito's house wasn't in a quiet neighborhood, very far from ours. His family was home, but they gave us the entire first floor to hang out in. As I walked into his room, the familiar wave of nostalgia hit me. Anime figure on the desk, a cluttered desk with a full open laptop, kittens in the corner, and of course the distinct smell of instant noodles and fabric softener. It felt like home away from home. Yo! Tito greeted me from his favorite chair. You look like you just escaped a prison camp. I laughed. Not prison, just culinary warfare. Daniel was already there, stretched out on the bed like he owned the place. Jason playing a Chinese anime themed game on his laptop. And just like that, we were a unit again for friends who hadn't seen each other since before 8. The room was filled with the kind of chatter that didn't require effort. We talked over each other. We laughed mid-sentence. We brought up old jokes and inside reference that no outsider could ever understand. At one point, Tito said something about his cousin getting scammed through a buy 8 cookies get bonus gold promo, and we lost it a full minute. Wait, wait, did they actually send cookies or just disappointment? Jason asked between whistles. Cookies, and a handwritten note that said, better luck next time, Tito replied, barely keeping a straight face. We all collapsed in laughter. Eventually, the topic shifted to our holidays. So, how was the green? Tito asked, looking at me and Daniel. Daniel stretched his arm and exhaled. Man, we got paid in blister and rice boxes. Don't forget the emotional damage, I added, grinning. But also we learned a lot like how not to serve dim sum at full speed. We told him we told him everything how we studied at Grand Royal Restaurant during peak mall traffic, how the staff there were strict and the work non-stop, how we barely had time to drink water. We shared the story of Daniel's motorbike breaking down and still arriving just in time, the dishonest cashier we had to confront, and the chaos of managing takeaway orders during the lunch rush. Then we moved on to Prima Rasa, how different the atmosphere was. We talked about the staff who treated us with kindness, the meals they shared with us, and how it felt like we were part of a family, even just for 2 days. Tito nodded, taking it all in. Damn, that's actually deep. I stayed home, gaining 3 kilos from eating my mom's cooking, and played my game in laptop. Jason chimed. I went to nowhere, just sleep and gaming. We all agreed that the holiday felt different this year. Maybe we were growing up. Maybe we just realized that doing something productive even when it meant missing out on family time wasn't such a bad thing after all. The conversation eventually turned toward college stuff, final projects, deadlines, classes we still didn't understand. Dude, have you started the creative reading assignment? Tito asked me. I sighed. Let's not ruin this vibe just yet. Laughter erupted again. Music played in the background from Tito's playlist. The volume was low, the tone mellow. Everything about the moment was soft, the kind of softness you don't always notice when you are in the middle of it. But you look back on later and realize it meant something. It wasn't affection to Bali. It wasn't a wild road trip or a massive reunion, but it was ours, just for friends, reconnecting after the madness, letting the silence speak when needed, laughing loud enough to cover the pain of sore muscles, eating just enough to refuel our tired spirits. And as the sky outside turned purple, I found myself thinking, this, this is the holiday I'll remember. After our sunset snacks and laughter had settled into comfortable silence, the four of us just sat there on the porch, legs stretched out, back resting against the wall, our drinks in hand. The temperature had dropped a bit, bringing a chill that felt more refreshing than cold. It reminded me that even in a tropical city like Surabaya, a quiet night could still feel like a gift. Jason began fiddling with his phone, and a mellow playlist started playing. It wasn't too loud, just enough to fill in the gaps between our thoughts. A soft beat, a gentle guitar riff, and the occasional lyrics, humming about youth and time slipping through our fingers. Poetic stuff, the kind of songs you don't usually pay attention to until you are in the right state of mind. I hate we only get moments like this when we are at the end of something, Tito murmured, eyes fixed on the orange pink sky. Like the last day of a holiday or the final hours before real life hits again. Yeah, I agreed. Because we spent the beginning hype up for the break and the middle either working or catching up on sleep. The end is the only time we reflect. Daniel took a long sip of his iced tea and chuckled. We sound like grandpas. What's next? Jazz in the park every Sunday? Hey, Jason added. I wouldn't mind that. Imagine us at 70, still roasting each other, still talking about video games from 2025, like they were gold relics. Tito leaned back and closed his eyes. That would actually be kind of beautiful, he said. We laughed, but underneath that laughter was something deeper and unspoken understanding that life won't always be this way. Eventually, we'd get pulled into different directions. Internship, graduation, jobs. Maybe some of us would move cities or countries. Maybe our meets up would shrink from weekly hangouts to once a year reunions. Maybe, just maybe, this Eid holiday will become one of those stories we tell our kids someday. I glanced around. These weren't just my friends, they were the witnesses of my youth, the people who knew the real me, not the student trying to ace deadlines, not the waiter rushing orders during Eid, but me, the unfiltered, sometimes chaotic, often sleepy, occasionally wise me. Do you guys ever feel like we are in a coming of age movie? I asked suddenly. Tito grinned. If this a movie, I better be the comic relief. You already are, Jason deadpanned, and we all burst out laughing again. Daniel nodded. But seriously, though, I get what you mean. These are the scenes, the one that stick. We continued talking, letting the evening stretch out lazily. At one point, Tito's younger sister brought out extra snacks, satay ayam, and some homemade iced coffee she've been experimenting with. She didn't say much, just gave a soft smile, vanished back inside, leaving us with a push of caffeine and delicacy to keep the mood alive. The sky had turned a deep indigo now, and the stars were faint but visible. It was rare to see many stars in Surabaya with all the light pollution, but even a few twinkles felt magical. We sat there sipping, chewing, talking, and sometimes just not talking. I'm glad we worked, I said quietly, breaking a moment of silence. Even if it meant missing out on some family time, I feel like I did something for myself, not just the money, but the experience. Danielle nodded. Yeah, like we proved to ourselves that we could take care of business, and honestly, it made this day feel earned. Tito and Jason both agreed, and, and then Jason added, but also, let's promise to balance things better next year. Work, yeah, but let's make time for stuff like this too. We all nodded at that. A silence, packed, a promise etched into the air just above the rim of our glasses and crumbs of our Queen By the time we started saying our goodbyes, it was nearly 10 p.m. None of us wanted to leave, but Monday's reality was already tapping on our shoulders. Tito walked us to the gate and we stood there for a bit longer. We said things like, see you in class and let's plan something soon. Even though we all knew college life had a way of eating up time faster than you could say midterms. As I rode my motorbike home that night, the streets were quieter than usual. The light from the warungs and food carts blinked softly in the distance. A few people were still out, maybe finishing up their own holidays, maybe starting a late shift like the one we had. I thought about the past 5 days, from the chaos of Grand Royal to the warmth of Prima Rasa to the laughter in Tito's room. It hadn't been a traditional Eid. No vacation, no extended trips, no fireworks. But it had been real, and in its own way, it was perfect. I pulled up to my house and parked quietly. My mom was already asleep. The house was still. I washed my face, changed into simpler clothes, and flopped into bed. Just before I closed my eyes, I looked at the fan spinning slowly. Tomorrow, I whispered, we get back to the green. And yet, despite that thought, I smiled. Because for one day we had paused, we had breathed, we had lived.